Warning, the video you're about to see for YouTube is disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Greetings, dear viewer, you finally reached the end of the Iceberg journey. It's been quite a ride, hasn't it? After diving into numerous surreal games, you know what's in store. From artful experiences to trippy journeys and pure horror mixed with surreal elements. In this video we dive into the last 3 layers of the Iceberg chart. So let's waste no time, shall we? But there are a few things we need to mention first. If you know any surreal game didn't mention on this Iceberg chart, drop them in the comment section for the Supercut version of this video. There is also one thing I beg you to do before we start, and that's to like the video if it's interesting, of course, and consider subscribing. Surprisingly, 88% of you watching are not subscribed. Why? Do you not want to see more videos like this on your timeline? If you subscribe, it would really help the channel a lot. If you want to help the channel even a bit more, there are things like the membership program or Patreon, which is only optional. So, make yourself comfortable, and thank you for tuning in, and I hope you will enjoy this video. Hideous Cave Goblin Games. We have one more developer entry on this list, and I don't mind giving a shout out to hardworking developers. From my understanding, this game was down and you couldn't access it, but they are recently live again and they can be played through itch.io. The developer is a Russian, and you probably know already about the whole conflict and what is going on in the country. He also states if you want to donate money, it will go to Russian charities. To find more about this, visit his page. And let's keep the political stuff out of this video. We are here because of his games. So there are quite a few games you could try it out if you want to. They are quite interesting but also dark. And if you find some of the footage I showed you interesting, check out his page, it's that simple. Galach. So the next game was created by Jack Clover, a name we are already familiar with. And be prepared because we are going to dive into many of his entries in the next layers. Now this game has a very weird concept, so he thinks that watching videos is sometimes more exciting than playing the actual game. He wanted to create a game that stimulates the feeling of watching unfinished game videos. I mean, this is a clear indication that the game is definitely weird. I mean, the gameplay is in the second plane here, it's all about the experience. You will play different characters in different areas and trying to make sense of what is happening. The stage. This is a vignette project by a guy we already mentioned a few times, and that's Jack King Spooner. Well, again, we need to put the gameplay aside, okay? Now imagine Kirby being made of clay and in black and white. You're stuck in a room with a statue and your goal is… well, that's a good question. After you start to walk, a frame will appear on the statue and it zooms slowly as you walk around, and some hooded figures starting to appear on the screen, left and right. I don't know if this is because of my browser, but I also didn't have any sound effects or music, which made the game more unsettling than it actually is. Try to make sense and tell me what did you find out down below. Satan's Pepper. I love the name of this game. This little gem was created by Ghost Wolf. The game was inspired by Andy's Land, and I really can't remember if any lands was on the list. There were just too many entries on this Iceberg. But I do love this game for whatever reason. Is it because of the aesthetics or because of its unsettling vibe that is going on? I'm not quite sure. So what can I tell you about the game? Well, it's a visual horror novel where you start in a grocery store and things start to happen. I won't spoil too much because it's a very short game and it would be a shame to spoil it. El Sueño de la Luz. we have one more Humanic inspired game, which is a completely new inspiration for a game. Okay, I'm just kidding here, but we don't wanna be harsh. So let's talk a bit more about this game. It was created by Arlekin 1980. To get it out of the way first, this is a demo, and the last comment was in 2016, where a user asked if this will be only a demo or if this game would be ever completed. But sadly the creator stated he doesn't have any plan to finish the game. The game follows a little girl called Anne, who locked herself in her room. The reason? She's obsessed with her inner demons, named Grey People, which slowly corrupt her mind. The only way she could defend against these creatures is to meet them face to face in the world of Anne's dream and to touch them. If not, Anne would be mentally ill. Does this sound interesting? The game is up for you to try on rpgmaker.net. All are ages. The name is just weird to sell at first, but also the game follows in a similar fashion. And I should make a list where I only rank the name of the games in this list. Melos Hantani, if I pronounced that right, has prepared for us a walking sim which can be found on Steam. And we can't get enough of walking sims, am I right? Now let's talk about this, shall we? First of all, the story is about Control Yuito as you explore his dying father's memory world. What supernatural things will you discover? I can tell you that you will dive into a low-poly PlayStation-like art style combined with lo-fi music. It also dives into identity, race and nationality, so keep that in mind. And also the story can be a bit dry and it's definitely not for everyone because of its theme. Kung Fu. Going in retro, so be prepared. I really need to dive into the 90s gaming era because there are so much wacky stuff in there. But to Kung Fu. It is a platform game released for the Amiga in 1996, and it's the first and only title from Dutch-based studios Great FX Development. Also in the game, besides you playing a kangaroo, you will use things like boomerangs, but also machine guns to fight your enemies. The critics at the time stated, it's a complete mess because of its color palettes used in the game, which adds points to the weird aspect. But the creator of the Iceberg also stated there is some body horror and dead animals in the game. Well, the only thing I found out in the game is the game over scream, because there is a skeleton of some animal, I would probably guess a kangaroo, in the desert. Because they use real images in the game, this can be off-putting to someone, definitely. And I won't show it on the screen, but just to have it mentioned if you're planning to play this game. Auto cannibalism. You're probably asking yourself, auto what? Well, auto cannibalism. And it's censored because of Uncle YouTube. You know how this goes. Well, this entry is basically a short story wrapped into a pseudo-platformer. This game was developed by Crimelo, which tells the story of a starving tribe in search for food. It's definitely a game that is unsettling. The gameplay is very simple, and the game can be almost mistaken for the game Pitfall for the Atari in some areas. It's not a complex game, but it was suggested by apparently everyone. Down Dusk Dream Sewer. Bind your soul to the mortal flesh of the astral vermin. The sewers are calling. They spoke your name in hushed whispers through the countless interweaving pipes. This game was made by Rafael Batista de Lima. This is a very cute looking isometric puzzle game. The color palette is definitely pink and everything is blocked in the game. It has a creepy vibe going on, but nothing too serious. But the visuals combined with the music do deliver a trippy atmosphere. Acephalic. Oh, what do we have here? Another visual provoking game that is more experienced than a real game. Well, we didn't see such games for quite some time, I think. Jokes aside, this experience is made by Dead or Gone. First, I need to warn you about it because content warning says there is blood, gore, sacrifice, glitch, porn, heroin imagery, but also videos after my thorough analysis. Now let me tell you, this freaking game. This is a FPS, but more like a walking sim, where the sounds, music and the overall presentation is very over the top, intense but also heavy. Low bass noises, flashing lights, disturbing and grotesque sights and adult videos. If it sounds chaotic, it is chaotic, and this game is definitely not for everyone. But I still would say I would recommend this game.
Carpool.
Imprisoned for life, you're only destined to proliferate. Take control of the infernal sorting apparatus and pick the valley spaceman of your pitiable offspring. So, in a nutshell, pick up eggs, put them into tube, bounce the hatchlings while avoiding soft blades. Try to get the little guys into the creepy mouth, and that's the gameplay. So I would like to tell you more about this entry besides what I just saw online, because not only is a downloadable exe game, it's somehow, again, I don't know how this happens, but my browser detected something bad here. Again, just be careful by the loading files from the internet and check everything through your antivirus.
Hybridant.
Another game lost to history, sadly. This game was made by Matthew, made in C++, if I'm correct. The game is a role-playing game, often criticized as a nonsensical. It comprises over 500 rules presented out of order. These rules include math equations with undefined variables, references to social and political topics, pop culture references, cross-references to non-existential things, and other game rules, alongside problematic content such as misogynistic statements. Remarkably, the game asserts its ability to accurately model the real-world physics reality. If you wanna go on adventure, here is a rabbit hole for you.
Heisei Pistol Show.
The next one is a free RPG Maker 2000 game. It's an adventure exploration game made in 2008 by Barun, the creator behind Rekinder. We got one more game with a wacky story. So let me explain the story to you. So Hart, a hitman with a Lolita-inspired fashion sense, faces betrayal from his former lover. Seeking revenge, Hart and his loyal companion Pistol decide to leave the organization behind. However, the escape is showed by the pursuit of the three top-notch assassins who follow their every move. It's a vivid and emotionally complex tale, blending elements of vibrant colors with a bittersweet narrative. The game is only in Japan, but it got an English patch. One more thing to mention is that it has some dialogue about suicide and child abuse, just to be aware if you're sensitive to these themes, and of course there are also some flashing lights in there.
Botulism.
This is the last entry on this layer. The game is a puzzle platformer. Again, it's a Mediafire site with an Excel file that was blocked by my browser. Yeah, I'm sorry. I will get some old PC to try these games out, but that's a battle for another time. Let's go to layer 7.
Mangia.
The layer starts with the Atari 2600 game. Mangia was released by Spectravision in 1983. Also, Mangia is an Italian word for eat. And the North American version of this game is the rarest game for the Atari 2600, if you didn't know. I mean, if the game is surreal, it's highly debatable. Well, it is a game where you control a boy who eats pasta served by his mother, because Italians, I guess. They can throw the pasta to a cat or dog throughout the window to avoid overeating, but if the mother catches him, she serves even more pasta next time. I also need to mention, if you eat too much, you can explode and your gut will be blue for whatever reason. I mean, what should I say? It's a bit a weak entry for this layer in my opinion, so let's move on.
Punishment.
This entry is a quite nice platformer in which you are set in a frame, and everything around is tilting and you need to platform your way through. It's definitely a fun game you can try out. It has some weird visuals and settings, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Gideon Towards God. It was released in 2011 and developed by Paul Stan Studios. In Gideon Towards God, it's all about the story. And it has not a complicated gameplay. You play as Alan Sparks, a historian from the US, searching for the city of Rain that reminds him of his dad. As a kid, his dad's stories matched real history, and now Alan keeps finding similar connections. In the game, there is another story from Alan's diary. It's like a doodle world where a guy looks for his Rain city, solving puzzles and meeting characters. The game has hand-driven art style, all in black and white, and it has a sketch style to it. By the way, if it wasn't clear, it's a point-and-click adventure style of a game. What is really good is the music. The main theme song of the game could be easily thrown in a game like Witcher or Skyrim, with its acoustic style and quality to it. Geoset. From a story-driven game, let's dive into something much heavier on the presentation style. Gideon presents itself as a horror game with its trailer, but at closer look you see it's a 2D platform horror game. The game was made by Amon26. The game has just a gorgeous art style to it, there is no other way to put it. It has somewhat pixelated art style and a dark tone. And the background music is a chilling atmospheric tune that consists of weird gruntings accompanied by moaning noises. And finally a game that has also good gameplay aspects, and it feels very polished due to its animation. You will burst upon dying, and the enemies have also satisfying death animation. One more thing to mention is that you also have a gun and a shield which can be used in combat, so you have the ability also to block enemies' attacks. This game is worth checking out. Gradient Addiction. Let's talk about one more game from Jack Clover. We can't leave this guy just alone. So what has he prepared this time for us? Well, it's a weird exploration game where all you do is fly around, as I would guess to be a half robot guy in a weird city. Heavy bass music and overall quite interesting soundtrack. There are a lot of glitches in the game, and it contains over 22 unique locations which can be accessed through secret portals scattered around the city. The game is quite a mess, to be honest. I mean, it's a weird exploration game with interesting aesthetics. Why and I? So what the hell is just this? This game surprised me a bit. It's a game made by developer Proofy. The core of the gameplay is based to be set in a perfect world in which everything is like a fairy tale. It's definitely a quite interesting concept. The game is an infinite sandbox / fantasy exploration game, but there are also some minigames thrown into the mix where you can collect coins and spend them on cute magic spells, creating fairy blocks, or in the fairy shops to buy flowers and fruits. From what I can tell, the developer put much love and passion in this game, and it's definitely a surreal game with its cute presentation. And it's definitely a change of pace from all the dark and gritty games we already saw. Glockbillet. Another game by, you guessed it, Jack Clover. I love how this game is branded as adventure for the family. You play as a thing which can be described like those balloon animals, and it looks like a dog, I think. But the game is also a shooter because you can do the most amazing thing ever. So you can shoot your enemies with pies. Why? Please don't ask me. This game is definitely set in a weird world, and if the game is made for the whole family is a bit debatable. I just love how you throw into the game and you need to discover what the hell is going on and what are you supposed to do. And one thing I love about the combat is how the enemies are just blobs that burst upon dying, because it's really satisfying to see them burst. Chambers of Stars. Finally, a really artistic game with a great atmosphere to be enjoyed. Imagine having your own little world with characters shaped by everything you see around. Your friends, fans, even the local shopkeepers. Each person you pass by is like a universe in itself. You create stories about them, and they have stories about you. And this universe is just keep growing. The game was made by Eric. The Chamber of Stars follows the 2018 Endless Empty game. It follows the story about Star, the rock and roll hero, across 6 distinct worlds. As you explore, make choices and perform, Star star's genre takes shape. This game blends traditional adventure, puzzle solving and one-of-a-kind rhythm game performance, all set in this imaginative, surrealistic world. It's a quite funny game, but I know if this game is really so surreal that it should be on the layer 7. Are you a stunning single? Do you long for true companionship? Are you attempting to populate a newly discovered planet, but you're worried that your offspring won't be genetically suited to survive in new environment? I know, weird questions. But this game is about a new dating app which shows you hot singles in your area, which maybe possesses the right genes to spawn a race of superior people who will survive on this harsh planet. The game was made by BenBot. There isn't much to say about this game. It has pixelated graphics looking like an early 90s PC game, in which you can choose various dating partners. Based on your decision if you want to mate or not to mate with them, you will get a child based on your combinations. I mean, this game is more a joke than a real game or anything else. Mementos Mori. This is a kind of creepy entry, to say at least. In 1999, Perfetti Van Melle and the Baudelaire estate collaborated on the Mementos Mori campaign. They introduced a limited edition Mentos called Ale Mints with a naphthalene flavor. Each Ale Mints had a gloomy message inside, which matches the eerie taste of the Mentos. They even made a website to promote the product, but it failed and was removed. Recently, a copy of the website was found on a CD-ROM owned by a guy named Mr. Guy Dupre, a 82-year-old man with no surviving family. I mean, it sounds weird, but I didn't check the facts. And the whole concept of the game, let's say, is based on looking on gory old pictures where they put random Mentos in the pictures with morbid messages. Also, this restored website can be also played to the Iceberg chart directly if you want. Pranic Parasite. Make sure to back up your soul before experiencing the cybernetic transcendence. The game was made by Mohamed Kamas. Well, this is definitely a trip to witness, but not in a good way. The game is talking to you in a way that your body is like a computer and how your input is valid and you need to restart, and I don't know, I couldn't just pay attention because I got motion sickness from the game because first of all, the walking speed was painfully slow and it's not like you're walking in the game but rather like hopping and the camera is jumping all the time. Also, the music can be annoying and the weird default noises which is speaking to you also annoyed me so much. I don't know, if you want to try it out, be my guest. Lisa the Insane. Well, I wasn't aware that Lisa had so many fan modes out there, this is quite insane. Well, Lisa was created as a joke game by the developer Loser. So why is he a loser? I don't know. But the loser stated that we follow the story of Binny, a very strange looking man which is alone. But he has 3 equally strange with which he needs to defeat the unnamed blue-haired man and his army. And it's an interesting game, but sadly this isn't released. And I only found a trailer about the game which you're looking right now. And yeah, I can tell you that the release date of the game will be in 20 million years from now on. Just great. Heart of Saphiloman. Let's dive some more in the 90s era of gaming with this horror adventure game released in 1993 for the X68000, a home computer created by Sharp Corporation. It was released in 1987 and was sold only in Japan. So as you can guess, the game is only a Japanese game and there isn't any English patch for the game. The game is a dungeon crawler game in which you can fight different weird things like reptiles, monsters, but also zombies, and you fight them in a traditional RPG fashion. I also would like to explain the story, but I couldn't find anything. The gameplay footage I found was in Russian, which I could understand some words, but definitely not enough to explain something. So I hit a wall here. But the game does look impressive for a 1993 game. This is an interesting little game set in a somewhat surreal world where you can go around and collect clothes, items and talk to NPCs who don't have anything meaningful to say. The game was made in 2008, I think. Other than that, it has some cheerful music, but somehow I got bored with it pretty fast, so let's jump to the next entry.
Garfield's Armageddon Prophecy.
The world is beyond salvation, but maybe, just maybe, you can still manage to play the role of a hero. It all rests in your hand. Yes, my dear viewer, we have a Garfield game on our hands, made by 2 makes 1 of a kind. It starts with you encountering Garfield, who after a brief conversation throws you in the trial room and your horror adventure begins. The gameplay style is like those early dungeon crawlers where you need to find your way to Garfield. There are 2 endings to explore in this very surreal world of Garfield, and there are 2 games in this series, if you can't get enough of this game.
Ugetsu Kitten.
Born in this world, death visits us one day, and the life of one person continues without ever stopping. However, even by death the spirit never dies, only receiving new lives, as their version repeats. Finally, I knew we would have at least one more surreal PlayStation 1 game on the list, and here we are. This is a very bizarre, nightmare-inducing visual novel game made by Donkey House, first released in Japan in 1992 for the PC 98, but it was originally ported in 1997 to the PlayStation. It was based and adapted on the 1776 Japanese novel Ugetsu Monogatari, which is a collection of 9 supernatural stories by Ueda Akinari. As you point and click your way around, you will find yourself in a baboon forest which is filled with many weird looking characters. Again, I found it hard to explain what's happening in the game because it was in Japanese. Also, the game isn't one of the best games. It definitely looks weird and it can actually be quite unsettling and gory to the point of discomfort.
Better Dead Ratification.
The next one on this list is apparently a lost game because there isn't any download link. But if you go to My Abandonware, which is a cool site you need to visit and explore, where you can find old and quirky games, you can also find download link for this game. So the game was released in 1995 by Art Sector 1. The game starts with you in a bar, and after sipping a drink you will find yourself looking at some weird guy speaking on a video call on a PC to you. And then you're in something like which I would describe as hell and talking to the devil. Again, I hit a wall here because of my language barrier, and if you know something more about this game, comment down below.
Super Spray and Slay 3D
is a surreal and nonsensical dungeon crawler with light gun gameplay. Spend a normal day as a maid Anastasia Wellington Claymore as she makes sure the hotel is clean and presentable. Does this sound fun? Then you can take Eric for making this game. It's a game with retro aesthetics where you will kill some weird looking monsters and collect key to progress. The gameplay can be a bit annoying and slow, but hey, that's what you get here.
Patrick
is a MS-DOS Tetris game whose special appeal is that the pieces are made of screaming flesh of damned souls. I mean, at the end it's a Tetris game with some weird looking faces on the blocks. And I don't know why I didn't have any sound in the game. It's really just Tetris. Let's move on.
Word Image Soundplay.
So, what do we have here? A PlayStation 2 game? This gem was released in 2004. This obscurity not only remained unpublished outside of Japan, but was also distributed in limited quantities. One interesting thing is that the game was published by Sony Music Entertainment, and not by Sony Computer Entertainment, which we normally would see in games. The game was only available in Japan, but its developer, Tomato, is actually British. Tomato is more than a game studio, it's an art collective founded in 1991, made up of artists, musicians and writers working across digital realms for artistic or commercial purposes. This is an art project more than a game in every sense, and I don't know what to say. This is definitely something you wanna try to spend your afternoon with. And I'm somehow happy we have a PlayStation 2 game in here.
Zoku Segere Aijiri.
And the last game on this layer is another PlayStation 2 game. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have another PlayStation 2 game, which makes me really happy. The game was released in 2002 and it's a sequel to the 1990s Shigere Ijiri on the PlayStation 1. It is based on a collection of weird minigames you can play from the hub world, let's say. The graphics do look pretty decent for their time, and the game was developed by Enix, which would later become Square Enix. You play as a guy with an arrow as a head, and it's totally Japanese and quirky, and I love it. It's totally wacky and I don't know what the hell is going on, and I really want to leave it this way because it's so over the top, it really made me laugh. If you can figure some way out to try to escape, please do.
Auto-generated pizzas.
The last layer starts with a category. So do you know about auto-generated pizzas? It's about Ash G, who makes these Bitsy projects. Bitsy is a tool to create old school stories and games made by Adam Ledoux. Ash G uses Python program to make these Bitsies. It is still a work in progress, but it can do quite a bit. There are even bigger plans, like having the program generate stories on its own using real news or blogs, and they are thinking about making the program more user-friendly with a nice interface. Right now you run it in a code editor, but they want to make it easier to use for a wider audience. Hope this gives you an understanding of this century.
Produce.
Let's dive into Produce. It's a horror sim game starting teenage psyches Gilbert, Toshio, Tina and Sayaka. But there is drama. Toshio likes Sayaka, who is into Gilbert. The twist: the spooky house wants friends on the top floor and offers to help Toshio with Gilbert. So here is the deal: you are not leading an escape. You are Toshio in for revenge. Control psychic creatures' projections and guide them up. And of course, time matters. You decide when and how long the creature will appear. No harm from these projections, but fear level does matter. If the fear meter is too high, they could have a heart attack. So what is the goal of this game? Reach the top of the floor before the dawn with no casualties. It's a tough game, but also super unclear. There is no learning curve, act quick or lose basically. The game is eerie, with unsettling monsters and a spooky vibe. Plus, heads up, there is some nudity.
Psyche E.
Is a point-and-click adventure game. It's very strange, very stupid and very smart. You will adventure through bizarre lands with your ego. This will be the first game in an adventure series, says the creator Resny, and it is hard to form an opinion about a game in which there are so many private parts and a decapitated baby's head. It also has a mature warning on the Iceberg chart, so I warn you before playing. The game combines many different art styles such as pixel, hand draw and collage. It's a surreal game that tries to tap into themes like existential questions. But the game did turn me off with the farting noises after that serious speech at the beginning.
Uzumaki.
Every entry is getting more interesting. The next one is Uzumaki Nebi 7 Invertible Girl. The game is a horror exploration game, and it's not a quite long game where you will need only 40 minutes to finish this game. You will start off in a room where you are playing as a young girl. When you exit the room, you will land in a strange corridor without any lights. After you flicker the lights on, a door suddenly appears, which will set you in a weird dimension filled with traffic lights, and the whole dimension seems to be in a loop somehow. This game is again in Japanese, and besides that my PC didn't load any text in the game, so I can give you a proper explanation of what the game is besides the visuals and the music. For what I can tell, the visuals are quite dark and the music is quite well because it's playing on a classic piano, at least at the beginning. Later on the corridor levels, the music is getting more ominous and creepy.
Gen Ski Games.
Let me introduce you to Gen Ski key. Yes, we have another creator entry. He's a very interesting game creator. Jen has 4 games on his site. First is Cowboy Bebop, Nope, Cuphead, You Can't Run Away from God, Enter the Void to the Holy Mountain, and Bad Dude vs. the Whole World. Immediately at first glance, you can see that the games are inspired by other games and media like movies and TV shows. A special shout out to Cowboy Bebop and Enter the Void, which is just a trippy movie to watch. Yes, of course, you can call these games rip-offs, but there is so much here, it's freaking amazing, trust me. The games are 2D shoot 'em ups, and they are freaking surreal and dump everything you know about these games and media into one pot and mix them together, combined with some of the best tracks featured on this chart. Yes, some of the games are remixed songs of the original, but trust me, just go to his page and immerse yourself in these hidden gems. But again, please finish the few entries you have.
The jingle.
The Teachings of His Excellency Jingle. This is a game made in 1999 by, you guessed it, Jingle, because why not? This is a black and white game where you play a guy who repeats the same sentence every time you talk to someone. So what the hell is going on here? Well, I'm not quite sure. Every time I entered a battle, the game quit. Then I just tried to avoid the enemies, but I couldn't get too far because of that. If some of you wanna try this game, let me know if you had the same problems as I.
Comeda low mail.
Well, this is quite a weird experience. It starts with you simply talking to a clown, saying he is here for you and you don't need to worry, and he is trying to be on your side. And then suddenly he tells you to touch his balloon. After you touch his balloon, for what I can understand, you're trapped. And you meet this guy who is also trapped there, I guess. And that's the point where this visual novel really takes off. For what I have found on the fandom wiki, Comeda Low Mail is a Tumblr blog created in early 2015. It is run by large, consistently shifting numbers of mods, all going by the name Nagito Comedea. Starting as a positivity blog for sharing low mail, it's growing into something quite unique. There are mods and posts about everything made, like thoughts, daily life, stories, art, and updates about the Comeda kind. They are even asking questions and taking submissions. The blog's design and their vibe has changed a lot over the years, sometimes following specific themes. There are also secrets hidden between the pages of the post. Well, this is completely wild and I want to look in this a bit more.
Cremaster Cycle, the game.
The game is inspired by Matthews Barney The Cremaster Cycle. It's a 5-part multimedia art movie. This video is only a record of this game existing. No updates since 2017 were made and certainly no downloads have surfaced. So, we can consider this game a lost game. Sadly, I tried to gather some more info about it, besides the developers' names, which are Konstantinos Dimitrimaidis, and I know I did pronounce that wrong, and by Mirna Marjanovic. I can't find anything else to give you, so I'm sorry, we need to skip to the next entry right here. Again, if you know some more about this, just comment down below and share your knowledge.
Space Spy.
And yes, we have arrived at the end, at the deepest parts of this Surreal Iceberg chart. This was quite a ride. So let's talk about the last entry, Space Spy. It's a puzzle game by Vasily Zotov, the mind behind Quite Soulless. It's a set of 5 stories happening around the Kodak Theater in Hollywood. The graphics aren't exactly good, but they are eerie and surreal, and that's all what matters here. Gameplay is about pushing objects on the grid to certain spots. Solutions get pretty obscure here, which are maybe deal breakers for some. But also the sound is a bit lacking and the movement can be slow. But I mean, it's the surreal experience what count, and I hope you didn't expect too much from the gameplay here, I guess. And yes, this marks the end of this Iceberg chart. For almost 3 months this was a series on my channel and it's finally over. It was quite an interesting ride, don't you think? Also, if you find this video even a little bit entertaining and interesting, leave a comment down below, maybe a like, and if you want you can subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this. For those who wanna take that extra step, you can always join my membership program or Patreon. This video series will receive a supercut version with all the parts, just to mention it, and I will be doing some work on the channel, so I'm not quite sure if I will manage to make a new video for the next week, but stay tuned. That's all from me now, and I see you in the next one. Snorky over and out. Bye.